Okay, here we are again. It's that time once more where I doom out about the state of Yakuza, because I guess I still have thoughts in that field, somehow. Obviously, I take no pleasure in this. It sucks to see something you love slowly become something you don't, but, I have thoughts, and I might as well get them out of my system, and it might as well be here, because where else am I going to do it, right? Yeah, hopefully this is going to be another kind of fast and loose one, because I got like a page and a half of notes. I'm just going to kind of riff. I got something much more substantial and something I'm much more proud of coming, I hope, around Christmas, but I don't know, because finals are going to be beating my ass. We'll see, but hopefully around Christmas. So just bear with me on that. But without further ado, strap yourself in. This is not going to be fun. So, I'm probably going to focus more on the writing stuff specifically. I kind of mentioned it in a very broad sense in that last video, or that first video, I guess. But there was some stuff I felt like I kind of left unsaid about the specifics, and I don't know, I guess I just kind of want to talk about that stuff in a more specific kind of fashion. So I'm just going to kind of go through a couple things I feel like are, in a big way, I think, kind of missing from these newer games that were very present in the older. So, here we go. I know what you're thinking. These games are ridiculous. They're goofy as hell. You got giant gold castles coming out of the ground. You got fighting tigers. You're fighting in underground coliseums. It's nonsense. And it is. I won't deny that. But I feel like looking at execution of those things is really important. And is, in my opinion, what's kind of lacking nowadays. I tend to think of the older games as existing in the same kind of plane of reality as, like, an action movie like Die Hard, or a martial arts movie like, I don't know, The Raid, or Police Story, or something like that, where obviously the things happening are crazy, but you can still easily buy that this takes place in the real world on Earth, and these are people with blood pumping in their veins. For another comparison, you can kind of think of it like this. When a character in a movie pulls a grenade pin out with their teeth, right, that wouldn't work in real life. Your teeth would fall out. It wouldn't happen, okay? But in movies, we've just decided that is the coolest possible way you can show someone unpinning a grenade, right? It just looks awesome. It's for the screen. And that's the level of reality I always think of the Yakuza games existing on. They might not always make logical sense. In fact, most of the time they don't. But on a narrative and emotional level, I think they almost always work really well. But all that said, these games still very much exist in the real world. It's not science fiction, it's not fantasy, they're action or crime drama. And while the series used to ride that line almost perfectly, I feel like this new era of the series has kind of lost that finesse. I won't say why I think that is, but that's just what happened. And I think a prime example from the game where I first started thinking about this is in the final chapter of Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. I'm not going to get into the specific story setup for this moment because it doesn't really matter that much and it's not really what I'm focusing on. I'm more looking at the specific moment-to-moment execution of this scene. So Shishido is having his big, bravado moment, right? And he starts to fight with Majima a bit and he gets stabbed in the hand, right? He blocks it with his hand and it's a whole thing, right? Cool moment, cool visual, but he doesn't react at all. Like, he's not like, ah, that hurt, or like anything like that. He's not like, ah, damn. It just kind of happens, and it's like, why did he get stabbed in the hand for? What was that? Like, generally speaking, when you get stabbed, especially in the hand, it hurts. I don't have experience with being stabbed, right? But, like, I've poked myself in the hand before. I have fingernails. I can, it hurts. Your hand's pretty sensitive. So, does Shishido not feel pain in his left hand? Is that what's going on? I don't get it. Why'd they write him to get his hand stabbed if, one, he doesn't react, and two, this is important, it never matters later. Like, it has no effect on the fight afterwards, it has no effect in the following scenes. Why does he get stabbed in the hand? That's weird. But that's not like the big problem is like the why of it. It's just the how of it, I guess. Like, compare it to another scene earlier in the series, right? Like, way earlier. Yakuza 2. Ryuji's having his big moment, his big hero moment, right? He's shooting Takashima while he's on the ground, right? It's a big deal. And he's getting shot while this is happening, right? And every shot he takes, every bullet he takes in that moment, like, matters. Because, if you recall, he dies at the end. And he's, like, bleeding out everywhere. And he's, like, he's got like seconds away from like dropping dead at any moment the entire fight. Like, that matters. Ryuji getting shot isn't just like, oh, he got shot. And he also like reacts like a human being to getting shot. Like, he's like, oh, I felt that, you know? And he's like, he's like screaming the whole time. Shishido gets stabbed in the hand and he like doesn't react at all. Is he a robot? Maybe that's it. Maybe in Yakuza 9 we'll get the reveal that he's a robot. Maybe that's it. Maybe that could happen. Anything could happen now. I feel like I'm losing my mind. But yeah, why does Shishido get stabbed in the head? Is it stigmata symbolism? That's like the only reason I could think of this happening, because it has no bearing on the story after this. It has no bearing on the fight. He doesn't react to it in the scene itself. It just doesn't matter, like, at all. Why did this happen? Why'd you do this? I guess if you boil it down, it's like a narrative weight thing. Like, it's a problem I have with a lot of these newer games, or I guess all of the newer games, which is it's the illusion of big things happening, but nothing really does. Like, Shishido gets stabbed in the hand, you're like, oh my god, this changes the game, right? He only has one hand to use. That's crazy. But never matters. He doesn't react. No one else takes advantage of the fact that he's a giant gaping hole in his hand. It just doesn't matter. In the scene, or in the fight, or in the scenes afterwards, it never matters. Cool. Now, you might have thought I'd be done talking about that scene, but no. There is actually another thing in that scene that is kind of similar that I also don't like. This might sound like a bit of an out-of-nowhere statement, but I promise it'll make sense in a second. Yakuza taking place in the real world, right, it's kind of impossible to, like, power scale it. Like, there's no definitive, oh, X beats X because X. Like, character A losing to character B in a fight doesn't immediately mean that character A is weaker than character B forever until they die, right? It's not like weird anime stuff like that. It's just, these are people who get into fights, and sometimes you have a bad day, sometimes you have a weapon, sometimes you have some kind of environmental advantage, whatever. That's just how it works. That's real life, right? There's no way to quantify strength in that way, right? So, another part of that scene has Shishido kind of bring his sword down on Majima, right, to, like, hit him with the sword. And Majima blocks it with his knife. I don't know how that works, but I'm not a physics expert, I'm not a knife expert, I'm not a sword expert for that matter. It doesn't matter. It happens, right? So Sajima's like, oh no, bro, I'll help you out. And he's like, I'll get him. And he, like, goes up to him and he's, like, pushing at him or something. And Shishido's just, like, holding them both, right, with one hand each, right? I forget if this is before or after he gets a hole in his hand. I don't remember. And it's like, okay, Shishido is now holding these extremely strong grown men by himself at, like, a total stalemate. And it's like, is his power level just really high? That's what it feels like. It feels like really bad Dragon Ball Z fanfiction, where, like, Shishido beats Majima because Majima's power level is 9,000,002, and Shishido's power level is 9,000,006, and therefore he is stronger and wins all confrontations. But yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels lazy and poorly thought out, and, dare I say, disrespectful to the audience. I know that might sound like a pretty large statement, but that is how it feels, and we'll come back to that idea, actually. Actually, there's another part of this scene that really annoys me. Right when Kiryu and everyone else takes their shirts off to show off their tattoos, right? One of the henchmen, one of like the Omi guys is like, who are these guys? And it's like, motherfucker, who are these guys? You know who these guys are. You were literally just in a room with them and they just explained who they were. Like 2 minutes ago. What are you doing here if you don't know who these guys are? Like, that only happens, that character only says that line so you could have that, like, moment of, like, oh man, these guys don't know who they messed with. But it's like, obviously they know who they messed with. These are the, like, who are these guys? You're insane! Why did you write that? I just don't like it. I think that's really dumb, and it's, like, such a poor excuse for, like, what clearly is supposed to be like, oh man, what a cool moment, but it's like, that's such a dumb writing choice of, like, ignoring any kind of, like, logic or reality, that it's just to have a kind of cool moment of, like, oh man, they don't know, but it's like, obviously he knows. Why would he not know? Everyone here knows who these people are. Are you insane? sorry, it just annoys me. It just really annoys me. But moving on from Gaiden, next is 8. And to be honest, a lot of 8 still kind of retains some of that grounded, real-world nature. But Polycana, specifically Bryce, is just... Huh? Like, I can buy Polycana, I think, like, if they really did a good job, which they don't, of, like, explaining how they work and all their, like, all the ways they kind of control things in Honolulu, which they don't. And also, just Bryce, what is he doing exactly? Maybe I didn't pay attention, but I really don't feel like they explained it very well. His plan is hoard the world's nuclear waste on your island so that you will profit from it. They'll like pay you to keep it there, like a storage locker for nuclear waste, I guess. But yeah, again, it's an execution thing. Like, I feel like Bryce could have worked really well as a character and as a villain if they really worked at kind of making him feel like a natural part of this location and this world. But he doesn't. Something I think they really succeeded with in 7 is it never felt like they were just like reskins of like fantasy tropes and fantasy game ideas. It all felt like it worked and made sense in the world of Yakuza, while still very clearly being like an homage to like Dragon Quest and what have you, right? But Polycana and Bryce feel like the opposite. Like, they feel like they do not belong here. They feel like just very, very much like a copy and paste from X fantasy game, whatever. And it really doesn't work, at least for me. But for the most part, I don't have much of a problem with that in 8. I have other problems that I think are much more dire about that game. I kind of, for the most part, just forget Bryce exists, to be honest. But the same cannot be said for Pirate Yakuza. Everything in this game makes me mad. And before anyone comments it, because I know what's going to happen, you can say it till you're blue in the face. Oh, Majima was an unreliable narrator. Nothing needs to make sense. And it's like, no. For one thing, narrator Majima only shows up like 2 times in the game. In the first chapter, and then at the very end of the game. And the entire game between those 2 points, he is nowhere to be found. There is no narrator to be unreliable. It's just a story that you're experiencing like any other. If they, at any point, maybe cut back to him telling the story, and maybe have a character like Ichiban who is there for some reason, just be like, hey Majima, that doesn't make sense, or that contradicts what you said earlier, blah 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 blah. Something like that, or like anything like that, then that would like justify that framing device's existence, where it feels like as of right now it only exists because they want to have weird things that don't make sense and don't have to think about the ramifications of it, I guess. So, whatever. We have giant robots now. Fine. We got giant octopus kraken fights. Fine. We got the One Piece. Fine. We've got 200-year-old men? Any notion of these games taking place in any kind of real world is just totally gone now. It is now pure fantasy. But enough about that. On to our next point. Something I really, really loved about this series before were the really complete, self-contained stories they had. Like, the only real constant you had in those early days were the characters. It was Kiryu, Haruka, Date, and maybe Majima. And as the cast has grown, obviously, as the series has gone on, it still stuck to that same philosophy story-wise. Each game is a complete arc and a complete idea on its own. And I feel like that's what we're missing now. The 3 games we've gotten since the change in administration at RGG are all kind of part of the same arc and the same storyline, and as a result, they don't all feel like fully complete experiences. Like Gaiden, right? That is the prologue to the Kiryu half of Infinite Wealth story, right? And then Infinite Wealth doesn't really have a full definitive ending. It still ends on that, ooh, to be continued. You'll get actual closure in the next installment. And then Pirate Yakuza is complete unrelated nonsense, but then has that little tag at the end of, hey, come back for Yakuza 9, it'll be great. I think the most apt comparison for this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In that series, all the interconnectedness and fun stuff in the early days was just really for flavor, to flesh out the world of these already complete standalone stories. And as it's gone on, that interconnectedness has kind of become the raison d'etre of the entire series as a whole. There is no full, complete story to be found in really any of these movies anymore. It's just another piece of this larger universe that's promising some nebulous conclusion at some point in the future to go on forever and ever and ever and keep making tons and tons of money. And unfortunately, I feel like that kind of mindset is what the Yakuza games are being modeled after now. The priority now is as much interconnectivity and as many loose threads as possible, even if it's not actually healthy for the story they're trying to tell. The strategy is now relying on past success and emotional attachment from fans to propel the sales of these games, instead of promoting them on their own merits. The stories of these newer games are all essentially unfinished and ultimately unsatisfactory. I'm not saying you can't do this interconnected puzzle piece kind of storyline, I'm just saying they're not doing it well. But continuing on, this last point I have about the writing specifically is tone. Now this one's kind of self-explanatory, but I'm going to explain it anyway, because that's why I'm here. I always remember from, I think, Zero onwards, after these games got really popular, the one thing that all those, major gaming news and review outlets always praised was the way these games balanced their really conflicting tones. Your main story, of course, is your grounded, emotional, gritty, violent crime drama, which is contrasted by the absolute goofy cartoon bullshit of all the side content. It is ridiculous that it ever worked at all. But right now, I feel like something happened, and now it just doesn't anymore. Aside from just in content being way more goofy and out there, the tone of the main story is also now much, much more like that of the side quests. It's a lot lighter and goofier and more self-referential, which it just doesn't really work. This might be a bit of a reductive way to explain it, but it feels like the games are now kind of leaning more into the memes and the fan expectations of it than really trying to make something special and unique. As cynical as it might sound, it feels like the way these games are made now is less telling a story or giving a fun experience, and more trying to fit in as many goofy, hilarious, viral moments people can clip on TikTok or Twitch, instead of making something really meaningful. Again, I know how pessimistic this sounds, but I really do think this is kind of the way it is now, not just for Sega, but for the whole games industry. Memes sell more than quality does. And looking at it through that lens, I feel like that kind of explains a lot about why these games, especially Pirate Yakuza, are the way they are now. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm done talking about the writing-specific problems I have with the games. Now I'm focusing on more of the actual new releases and information we've gotten in the past little while. First up, Zero Director's Cut, which, hilariously, is still not a director's cut. In fact, both of the credited directors of that game now work at Nagoshi Studio, which is very funny. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this new version of the game. I don't want to play it. I've played Zero and I like it. I don't need a different version of it, especially not one that costs like $90, I think, here in Canada. I'm not doing that. But unfortunately, for those of you listening to this in the future, you have no choice, because just a couple days ago, they released the information that they are now delisting the original version of Zero from all stores online. So you now cannot play it. You can only get the director's cut, which is an extremely convenient coincidence because, Zero's been out for what, a decade now? So normally it runs you $20-25 off a PlayStation Store here, and it goes on sale all the time. It's pretty great, right? But not anymore. It's now a full $80-90 for this new version, which I'm not really sure what they added aside from a multiplayer mode and a few pointless new cutscenes that add literally nothing. It seems a bit like a scam. But yeah, aside from this just being very annoying price-wise, it's also just not good practice for the archival of games as an art form. This feels like the kind of thing you'd expect Nintendo to pull. And I thought Sega did what Nintendo don't, so more fool me, I guess. But yeah, back when this fake director's cut was announced, I had this weird conspiracy theory that, like, okay, this is pointless to do, right? And I still think it is pointless to do. Zero is, or I guess was, because it's gone now, perfectly fun and playable in its original form. Like, that's a PS4 game. It's not that different from a PS5 game, let's be honest. No reason to really remake it. It's not like people have trouble accessing it, or there's no barrier to entry, like, at all, right? It's just a new version of their most popular game that's obviously going to make a ton of money. That's it. And I just want to say, this is obviously very, very cynical thinking. Like, I didn't used to think about this series this way, but I guess I do now. That's just where I'm at now, I guess. But my conspiracy theory was, right, if you think about that MCU-style intro they have now, right, where aside from, like, very, very small, like, little frames or little fractions of a second, it's all the new games. It's either Dragon Engine games, or it's specifically games made by the new administration of RGG, right? Very specifically. And I said this in the last video, to me that intro is saying, okay, this is a new era. We're moving on from the old way of the series. We're going into something new, right? That's fine, but again, not really true to what they're doing. They're pretty much exclusively drudging up old plot lines, old characters, even entire old games, like with Zero. It doesn't mesh, right? But my theory is, in that kind of spirit of them only having their new games that this new administration has made, they want to have Zero in there so they can make a kind of like claim over it, that this new administration, technically speaking, also made Zero, which to this day is still their most critically acclaimed game, like 10 years on, right? They want to have that same clout of, hey, they made Zero. And I guarantee you, sooner or later, scenes from the director's cut of Zero will show up in the intro, but 6 will be suspiciously absent, as will every other game before Zero. But yeah, that was kind of my, like, crackpot conspiracy theory as to the motives behind the Zero director's cut, because it sure as hell wasn't, like, improving the game. I don't really think there's much you can do in that regard, to be honest. But yeah, this whole delisting the original version of Zero and replacing it with the much more expensive, kind of pointless new version of it just really kind of makes me think back to that crackpot conspiracy theory and start kind of thinking, oh, maybe it wasn't a theory. Maybe it wasn't that crackpotted after all. And to be clear, I don't know if this is like a Sega thing or if it's an RGG Studio specific thing, but it's just like, either way, it's not fair to consumers. It's bad for the medium as well. Like, it's just bad vibes all around. I don't like it. One of the ideas I kind of keep circling back to in my head over these past few months is that these games are kind of paying lip service to, like, moving on in a bold new direction, but they're really not, like, at all. Like I said with the MCU style intro, like, that is in theory a kind of declaration of, okay, we're all showing only our new games from this new era of the studio, you know, we're moving on a brave new path. But they're not. They're drudging up old plot lines, old characters, even entire old games. It's just not what they're doing. That bold new direction is essentially just a nice sounding lie. And on that note, let's talk a bit about Kiwami 3. I've been on record a couple times saying I just didn't want this game to exist. It's kind of a dumb idea, and I don't think it needs to happen. I'm really just not into the idea of remaking games in general unless they're like a PS1 or earlier game. I just don't see a point. Like, just remaster them, port them, whatever. 99% of those games made from like 2000 onward are still perfectly legible for new players. It's just a matter of actually making those games accessible, which game companies refuse to do for some reason. It drives me nuts. But anyways, back to the task at hand and Kiwami 3. The first thing I want to talk about is the really bizarre angle they've chosen to go with for the marketing. Like, the vibe here is the original game is bad and we've fixed it, which is just such a weird strategy that I cannot wrap my head around. I know people aren't particularly fond of the 3 remaster, like Yakuza and all that, but for one thing, grow up, learn to throw, and also, it's one thing if the fan base has that view on it, right? It doesn't really matter that much, but like, the developers themselves talking about it like that is like really weird and doesn't inspire a whole lot of faith. It's treating the game as if it's some, like, infamously broken game. Like, you're not remaking E.T. for the Atari. You're remaking a damn good game that just happens to not be as well liked as other damn good games in the series. That's it. And the "it's bad but we fixed it" attitude is an especially bizarre way to come at this game, considering it's missing a ton of stuff from the original game. Like, off the top of my head, here's what we do not have. No revelations, which is insane. Morning Glory Golf Course will not appear, which I really liked. I know it's golf, but I liked it. It's cool. Ryukyu is somehow smaller, which is insane. The upgrade system is going to be the Gaiden upgrade system, because of course it is. The heat system is probably also going to be the terrible Gaiden heat system, because of course. The HLA? Not that HLA, I'm referring to the Honest Living Association. And the recasts, of course, which I do not think work, more on that later. They are adding stuff, but it's not really stuff that's entirely new. Like, the Morning Glory stuff is just going to be the Animal Crossing from 8, mixed with the cooking minigame from Pirate Yakuza. That's it. It all just kind of gives the vibe of, like, where is Yakuza 3 in all this? Like, everything that made that game unique and made it what it was is kind of stripped away now. This version of it kind of just feels like the homogenized, standardized vision of what this series is. For lack of a better term, it's sanded down Yakuza. And unfortunately, that's kind of how I feel about the whole series right now. It's trying so hard to reach that mass appeal and that almighty dollar that it's losing itself. It's losing that core that made it what it was. I think a good analogy could be this. Say you have a pet cat, right? You love this little guy, you adore him, brings you warmth, comfort every day. And he dies. But you still want that cat around, even in spirit. You take him to a taxidermist who can make this little statue of your cat. And that might still bring you comfort for a while. And after all, that's your cute little cat right there. But he doesn't move. He doesn't breathe. He doesn't make noise. He can't give you that same warmth and comfort that he did, because he's dead. It looks like the cat, maybe it feels like the cat, but it's not. It's just an empty body. And unfortunately, that's where I think this series is at right now. It's the taxidermy version of Yakuza. It looks like Yakuza, sometimes it'll act like Yakuza, but it's not, and I could not be more upset to say that. And that'll take us to the last thing I'm talking about today, which is the elephant in the room. It's going to be some dark stuff, trigger warning for sexual assault, skip to here to avoid that talk. So, Teruyuki Kagawa, the actor who was recast for the role of Go Hamazaki in Kiwami 3, has a few years ago been accused of and admitted to multiple counts of sexual assault on multiple different women. And this is the man Sega or RGG or whoever has gone out of their way to cast in this remake. And obviously this extends farther out than just Sega. This is a larger societal problem. But Japan is a much more conservative culture than people think it is over here. So this kind of thing and this extremely lax treatment of abusers happens more often than you would hope. And obviously people have been calling for his removal from the game, because yeah, fuck that guy. But unfortunately, and I could be wrong, I don't think that's going to happen at this point. If you remember, the original actor for Hamura in Judgment, they delayed the game by, I think, a week in Japan, so they could recast him. Because he was, I think, caught with drugs or something like that. So they have taken those drastic measures for much less. And again, I could be wrong, but at this point, I don't think they're going to do anything about it, let alone acknowledge it. Apparently they've even been deleting stuff off of their Twitter or Instagram comments, like of people saying hashtag remove Kagawa and all that, which, I don't know, pretty gross. I think the ultimate embarrassing irony about this, specifically in regards to RGG, is that in every single one of their games, in Kiwami 3, I guarantee you, there will be a side quest where Kiryu beats the shit out of a guy for doing this exact thing, for forcing himself onto another person. And I just think it's really gross and sad to see that this is where we're at with this series. And again, I know this is not just a Sega problem or an RGG problem. This is all part of a much larger societal problem, not just in Japan, but everywhere in the world. I'm not naive enough to think that everyone who works on these games is or needs to be, Kiryu in real life, like battling evil wherever they see it and having the perfect morals. That would be silly of me. But I do think there is a level to which you need to stand by the ideals you promote in your work. Otherwise, you risk being seen as hypocritical. And as silly as it feels bringing it back to my dumb video games after talking about actual real-life horror, that same idea is, I think, why I feel such a disconnect from the modern Yakuza series. It's lost and it's floundering. It doesn't know what it is anymore or what it stands for. So yeah, I was already kind of on the fence about whether I even wanted to play Kiwami 3, because I knew I wasn't going to like it. But really, this just gives me even more reason not to. So, yeah, it's remove Kagawa until he's gone or until I don't buy the game. And that's all I got for now, I think. Kind of a Debbie Downer video, I know. I'm in kind of a Debbie Downer mood, I guess, so it is what it is. Like I said, I've got something much better than this I'm working on. We'll see how that goes with finals and all that jazz. But I should have that out by Christmas, or on Christmas, I should say. At least I hope I will. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's getting cold out. Stay safe. Bundle up. Remove Kagawa from the game. And yeah, I'll see ya when I see ya. Bye.